Hi, it is Charles Austin Klein again, and I am coming in for my next longer video because I have also been made aware that some information that I would like to bring some more awareness to for you, for everybody, for global collective awareness. And I moved to Vancouver in 2022, and I met a guy when I was there, and things were going well, and then I was sexually assaulted, and my mental health condition was triggered, so I was now experiencing more severe symptoms, and kind of, I'm assuming it freaked him out too, and my behavior changed, and yeah, sorry, I'm back. I'm just lost in my thought there for a second, and meeting Rowan and my experience with Rowan changed my life. And Rowan Enslow, just to be clear, Rowan Enslow, he is currently back home still in somewhat of a dangerous situation now, because everybody knows my feelings for him, and once they can't get to me, or if they can't get to me, they're going to get to him to get to me, and he needs help and support and protection as well as I do. And I am going to, that's part of why I want to do this video right now, and why I'm walking, and because who really knows what's going to happen in life. Things are getting a little bit intense in Calgary now, and me and Rowan and I were not together. We never dated. I asked him to date, and he said no. He was going to date himself, and he went to a hockey game with a friend, and I freaked out a little bit. Mental health condition and everything kind of triggered again. More severe symptoms. Not paranoia, but fear of rejection and abandonment. And yeah, just fear of rejection and abandonment really came through. And long story short, he called me crazy, and it woke me up. It woke me up to the way I was behaving in that moment, and to my recent diagnosis that I had just received of borderline personality disorder, and the way that condition has affected me, and in minor ways probably my whole life, but how the severity had increased with the symptoms, and that happened because I was assaulted, because I was sexually assaulted. That made the condition that I had manageable, unrecognizable symptoms, go to be more severe, and to make it so that somebody I really liked wound up thinking that I was calling me crazy. And in that moment, I was crazy. In that specific moment, I had gone crazy. I was crazy. I was acting like a crazy person. And I am actually so thankful to Rowan for calling me crazy, because that woke me up, and that is what started my life, changed my life, and started my journey to work on myself. And that is why Vancouver City Police Force picked the absolute wrong person to try and do this to, because anybody else would have lost their mind or gone crazy or been kidnapped or given up. But I've just spent a lot of time working on myself, and I know who I am, and I know my internal narrative, and I'm confident in myself and my abilities and who I am. After calling me crazy, Rowan was contacted by the husband of a mutual friend, of one of my friends, and whose husband was jealous and wanted me out of my new friend's life. We had just met, it had only been a month, but I called this friend to come and help me calm down from this experience with Rowan. And that is what triggered his husband to be jealous of me or see me as a threat potentially. And I can't speak for him. I don't know why he did what he did or why he's done what he's done. But he manipulated Rowan away from me. I believe that he did this when he invited him over for a hookup, and I believe Rowan fell asleep, and that Donnie had put thoughts in his head and manipulated Rowan in his sleep when he was over there. I do know that he was over there he was over there several times, at least 3 times, that I know of, probably more, I would imagine, I don't know, but at least 3 times that I'm aware of. And Donnie manipulated him every single time that he was there, I believe. And I believe it was very similar experiences, and he manipulated Donnie manipulated Rowan to push me out of Joe's life. He had Rowan over and surprised Joe with him being there, and thinking that Joe now telling me that Rowan was there and they were hanging out would then push me further out of Joe's life or cause me to react in such a way that would get Joe to not want to be in my life. And there were other events that happened that I believe were orchestrated by Donnie to get Rowan out of my life. Now, fast forward to after my file, I actually included Rowan in by BCCing him in my email to the BC Human Rights Tribunal, just because I figured it was a good idea to let somebody else know what I was doing and have a chain of another person to verify what emails I've sent. So he knew that I had filed a complaint with the BC Human Rights Tribunal against the Vancouver Police Department for failure to investigate my sexual assault. And I believe that he was approached by the Ombudsman group, who are the oversight body of the police force, and I have heard that they followed me around collecting evidence for a month and a half. That's what I've heard. And I had an experience with the advanced technology that is being tested in the area in Vancouver, and I heard Rowan speaking to me through the chirping of birds. Now I can hear birds here and other sounds, and I know he's not talking to me in the birds. There's nobody talking to me in these birds right now. And that is proof that I am aware that the birds chirp and there's not somebody talking to me in them all the time. And that was a singular experience that I had with Rowan speaking to me in the birds, and how I remember him seeming like he was excited. Like, the thought that I had at the moment was, it was like Rowan on helium as a chipmunk on caffeine. That was the thought that I had, that it sounded like. And I remember trying to get him to calm down so that we could communicate properly. And I was communicating back to him. And I have no idea how they were hearing me or how he was receiving my responses, but he was communicating back with me. And I was in an apartment building parking lot, outdoor, between the barrier wall and a storage container on Cardero. I think it's 1060 Cardero is the building. And I was sitting there on a box between the 2 walls because I was hiding from the people that were getting me to follow them around, and the mass amount of people that were involved in this. And I was hiding, and I very distinctly remember hearing him and the excitement in his voice that I was finally picking up on the message that he was trying to send through to me. And I could envision him standing in a room with other people and a microphone, and how excited he was getting. And it was a very clear visual of what was happening. And now that I've been learning that he was working with the Ombudsman group, and that he followed me, or they followed me, the Ombudsman group, for collecting evidence and seeing what was going on and trying to figure out what's happening for a month and a half. And I also don't know why they didn't pick me up. Like, did they not clue into what was happening? Did they not realize that it was, that I was potentially being human trafficked, or that's what was happening, that they were attempting to human traffic me? Or what was happening? I have no idea. Because it would have been, I noticed that there was a switch of people that were involved in this in end of July and into middle of August. In that transitionary period, there was a switch in the groups of people that were involved in this. So I don't know who the new groups were. I have suspicions of who the new groups were, and I do know at one point the local gang wanted to find out what I was doing and what was going on, and I did communicate with them, and I didn't know what was going on, and that's literally all. I met with them and I said, I don't know what's happening, I don't know who these people are, but I know there's a lot of people involved, and I'm not telling you who they are because there's just too many, and I don't want that karmic debt, and I don't want anybody hurt. Because right around the same time as I filed the human rights complaint, I had the thought that maybe Rowan was an undercover police officer, and that is why he stopped talking to me. Because I still didn't have any solid evidence as to why Rowan had stopped talking to me. I just knew that my suspicion was he was told to cut me off cold, and that was best for both of us, and that was the best way to handle the situation with my mental health condition, because I believe Donnie had researched my mental health condition and the best way to trigger it, because having somebody cut you off like that with borderline personality disorder is absolutely the worst way to exit their life if you want to, and cutting them off cold like that it could lead somebody with borderline personality disorder to kill themselves very easily. And I did think about killing myself several times. There was one moment at Gilmore train station where I very vividly had to remember having to pull myself back from the platform because I had determined that it would be the least traumatic event for everybody else if I just jumped in front of this train because nobody else was on the platform with me. And I do remember the female was being pushed back from the platform against the wall. I don't know, but my higher self coming and pushing me back in and making sure I didn't jump in front of the train. That would be my first guess. But I remember hearing Rowan in those chipmunks, or not chipmunks, in the birds. I remember hearing Rowan in the birds and how excited he was. And there's no other way that could happen except some form of advanced technology that's able to mix messages into everyday sounds that are coming in from around you. I do know that I have also heard these sounds and messages from people that have identified themselves to me in various different forms of law enforcement. In the motorcycle sound could be one, the cars could be another, the train, like the grinding of the train's sounds on like the SkyTrain. The helicopter. I remember at one point the helicopter started to communicate a message to me. It didn't happen the whole time. It doesn't happen here. I've never had it happen in Calgary. I did hear the helicopter last night, but I didn't hear any messages coming from the helicopter, and which was comforting actually for a moment there. And so I don't know why the Ombudsman stopped following me after a month and a half, because this went on until end of September, when the messaging told me to go for a mental health assessment at the Vancouver General Hospital and requested by CSIS. That was the messaging that I was receiving at that time from the various sounds of objects around me. And that is I'm gonna leave it at that because these 30-minute videos are getting views, but I think maybe the shorter ones will get better more. But wrap it up, summary. The Vancouver City Police Force was trying to human traffic me. They were leading me into parking lots and leaving me sit there for extended periods of time. I only sat there for 90 minutes. Who knows what happens if I sit there for 2 hours? Because they lead you into these parking lots thinking somebody's hurt. And with my thoughts of Rowan being an undercover police officer and me communicating that with him, it'd be very easy to hack my Gmail and know that that's what I had said to him. And that maybe that made things worse for me. Because in this experience, I did try and confront Rowan and ask him what was going on and if he was an undercover police officer. And he ran into a building, pretty much. And I saw somebody that I knew going into that same building. And I told them that their roommate might be an undercover cop. I don't know if he was their roommate, but the people that I saw going to, or the person I saw going to that building would have needed to know that that was an undercover cop in his apartment for reasons I'm sure you can tell why. And I bet you the police found out about that because there were people walking around me and following me at the time already, because I was already into this all starting. My timeline, I've been being gaslit for over a year, so the fact that I still have a grasp on my reality, timelines from when I was being gaslit is where I'm struggling, but I have a firm grip on my reality, and I know what's going on. And I'm not going to let this go. And this is going to be the largest case of corruption this world has ever seen. Because it could be a big one. It could go really high within our law enforcement agencies. And I have no idea. And I always knew not to trust the messaging 100% that I was receiving, that it could be somebody lying to me, it could be false data, it could be sending me in inaccurate direction. That communication had me think that Rowan was waiting for me in Hope, and they tried to get me to walk to Hope from Chilliwack in that last month. And I attempted once, and I made it halfway in a day with no food or water. Something I would have left, not started a 45-kilometer hike without bringing with me water and food, considering I had my dog with me in my backpack, in a sling across my chest. That communication had me walk into oncoming traffic on the highway, thinking that there was going to be a car that was going to stop in front of me and rescue and take me like to where I needed to go and pick me up. I think I walked into oncoming traffic on that highway for 2 seconds and jumped back over the railing. Maybe a little bit longer, but not for very long. And it's a good thing that highway's not very busy. It's busy, but not busy, not 401 in Toronto busy. And I think whoever was leading those communications at that time was trying to kill me, to silence me from what I know about human trafficking that's going on in Vancouver and their Vancouver City Police Department's involvement and spearheading of it. I hope you have a good day, and like and share this video. I've turned comments off because I don't really need other people's comments on my experience, because it was my experience and I know what I've been through. But share and like this video for traction. Thanks.